is a neato. Try that again.
You're good.
She is a neonatal intensive care unit charge nurse, and she had a traumatic brain injury in 2021. It kind of changed the entire course of her life. I'm super happy to have her on the show. And she's going to tell you a lot more about herself because she'll do a better job of that than I ever will. Her name is Laura Renner, and she is a fabulous author, and I love her book. Just a little book plug here. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. I am thrilled that we get a chance to do this. I've had your book sitting on my nightstand for the last couple of weeks because I've been that excited about this.
Oh, I love it. Yay. That makes me so happy.
So tell me a little bit about your experience in childhood. Where did you grow up? Where are you originally from?
So I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, which is like 30 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. And, I had a good childhood in so many respects. And I always thought I had a great childhood. And it really wasn't until my brain injury where I started kind of going down the trauma rabbit hole. And that's when I realized that I had so many traumatic experiences in my childhood that I either had repressed, had no awareness of, or just didn't recognize as traumatic. And it's really interesting when you kind of reframe it. And for the longest time, I thought, oh, yeah, just, bad things happen. But like bad things happen to everyone. But then when I was able to really change that perspective and identify that, no, these were trauma, like these were traumatic experiences, and really kind of process those and break those down, it really kind of changed a lot of my viewpoint about the way that I grew up in my life, because I thought, oh, I was a normal kid, but I wasn't. I had severe anxiety. I had depression. I was constantly living for other people. I was just constantly filled with shame and worried about embarrassment and doing whatever I could to kind of mask and avoid that. And it's been really interesting, I'll say, to unpack all that and really kind of work through it and process. But overall, it's really helped me grow a lot as my adult self, and also just really give a lot of compassion to my childhood self.
And I'm so glad that you were able to do that. So many people would just take another bad experience as being exactly that, and they won't use it as a tool. You learned how to use your experience, your newest traumatic experience, as a tool to dig up all the old trauma and deal with it.
Yeah, and it took a lot to get there, I'll say, because, starting in 2017, I had a lot of different bad things happen, but they just weren't enough to get me to that point. It literally took a smack to my head to completely shift that perspective and really allow me to see, like, whoa, hang on, like there's more going on here. This isn't just a string of bad luck or whatever. This is something a lot deeper. And the more that I was able to delve deeper into those processes and learn a lot more, it was the most eye-opening thing for me in the best way.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we have to hit rock bottom before we're willing to really reach out and get the help that we need.
100%. And I thought I hit it that rock bottom, and then I thought I hit it again, and then I thought I hit it again, but I really didn't hit it until that brain injury. That really brought me to a different point than I'd ever been before.
So are you all right with talking a little bit about just kind of touching on the things that you had to go through in your childhood that you had repressed for so long?
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, I experienced sexual abuse. I had a near-death experience when I was 7. I almost drowned in a river. I was attacked by multiple dogs, actually, between the ages of 3 and 7. And, those were kind of the big T, more obvious traumas. But then I also had a lot of that I learned, especially through EMDR, and was able to really make those connections, that I had a lot of, smaller moments of, the first time that I felt that I was an embarrassment, or the first time that I felt that I was a bad kid. And these kind of pivotal moments that maybe kind of seem innocuous or not that serious per se, but really kind of attached itself to a lot of bigger other moments in time that just created these super powerful beliefs in myself that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I should be ashamed, I should be embarrassed. And man, it was really intense to kind of figure all that out. And then also kind of piecing that together with, in my adult life, I was married to a very emotionally abusive, narcissistic person, got divorced, and then from then, that's kind of when I was experiencing a lot of the body breakdowns, which I truly do attribute to trauma. I had a lot of bone issues. I broke my back twice.
Hmm.
I broke my my wrist falling in a parking lot. Nothing serious, seemingly. Shattered it in 8 places. I had a blood clot in my lung, and then I had a seizure. I had this traumatic brain injury, which again, that was just a freak accident. I was in one of the parks downtown in Denver. I was playing with my friend's kid. I fell backwards on stone, ended up with massive bleeds throughout multi levels of my brain that required brain surgery.
Ooh.
And and then through that process, there were even more complications where I, developed this 1 in a million life threatening reaction to a medication. So it was just like thing after thing after thing that I thought were really kind of their own individual experiences. But as I was able to kind of piece them all together, I was able to see a lot of consistencies. And so much of it came down to I never felt safe in my body. I always thought, and I was always just in fear. So much of my childhood trauma and my adult trauma just stemmed out of constantly having to feel like I needed to be on high alert, always preparing for the next bad thing to happen. And that meant a lot of breakdown in my body, a lot of breakdown emotionally, a lot of masking and dissociating from a lot of what was really going on underneath the surface that I just wasn't ready or equipped to deal with at that time.
Wow. And I understand there was a time where your medical providers were not wanting to hear you. They weren't listening to what you were telling them.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I mean, that's just a
Medical gaslighting.
oof, that has been a constant problem. And the hilarious part of that is I'm a nurse. I am someone who is medically informed. I am someone who, in theory, should know how to advocate for themselves. And I was still met with roadblock after roadblock after roadblock and just not being believed. I showed up with the classical presentation of what's called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is this potentially life-threatening reaction. And they still said no, they thought I had mono. And I was just like, what is happening? Like, what world am I living in? It was just it was terrifying in a lot of respects because I thought, I am someone who I'm medically informed. I know myself. I know what I'm talking about. And I know how to advocate for myself in a lot of respects. But if I'm still being met with all this resistance, what does that mean for everyone else? What does that mean for just the general layperson out there who this is their first time dealing with the medical community? And that whole piece, I mean, I could go on about that for hours in itself, but it's been a lot of roadblocks and a lot of hurdles, I guess, for the majority of my life in a lot of respects, as it is for many of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're a trained medical professional because we can actually talk about some of this stuff now that I'm normally not able to really discuss with people because they don't truly understand what certain things mean. And I
Mhm.
love that you said that the person that was in your life before your ex-husband was a narcissistic person. You don't go out and diagnose him as having narcissistic personality disorder because this is very difficult to diagnose.
Right.
Being narcissistic is not the same thing as having NPD.
Exactly.
And there was another term that you touched on. You said you had a disassociation from your body. A lot of people don't fully understand what that means. In fact, I didn't understand what it means, and my therapist really didn't explain this to me. I thought dissociation was where you have what we used to call split personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, and that's not the same thing. So let's talk a little bit about dissociation. What were you experiencing? What does this actually mean? What are people experiencing when they go through this?
You're exactly right. And that's something that took me a long time and a lot of, therapists explaining it to me, a lot of reading about it because I was just like, well, this is all that I know. So what is that supposed to mean? This was my baseline. And my baseline looked like being very numb to emotions, having really no emotional awareness or emotional intelligence, literally not feeling pain, having a super high tolerance to pain, completely tuning out of my body, tuning out of my feelings. And that was basically my body's way of protecting me because a lot of the trauma that happened to me happened to my body. It was physical. And so my body basically, it's wise in a lot of respect. It's really smart that it learns how to adapt in a way where I'm able to completely tune it out, or I was at least able to completely tune it out and not feel. I mean, oh my gosh, I thought that I had managed my anxiety. I thought, oh, my childhood anxiety, like I've healed all that. I feel good. No, not at all. Instead, I was just completely out of touch with my body. I was just so removed from how to even feel. And for a lot of people, that might be really hard to connect to. But for people who have, complex trauma or dissociation, you can totally resonate with that because you just don't connect those dots in the same way. It feels like there's almost something in between that prevents you from being able to truly feel. And what that's really meant for me is it's required I mean, years now of very intentional somatic therapies. And so connecting to my body, connecting to my breath, connecting to my nervous system, and also just not letting the panic take over when I do feel something uncomfortable, because that would be my past. It would be, I would feel this extreme discomfort. I'd be like, oh, gotta disconnect, gotta get out of this. Let's start drinking. Let's go for a run. Let's do something. But now it's, learning to recognize that and sit with that and be okay with that discomfort and really being able to respect my body's responses instead of just tuning them out.
Right. Right. And there's yet another thing that you touched on, self-medicating with alcohol or drugs. I understand this was a part of your past as well.
Ooh, yeah, it was. I mean, that was how I got by. Like I think back to, even 2021, Laura, so not even that long ago, where I was a night shift NICU charge nurse. I worked, 4 nights a week, and I would sleep for maybe 4 hours between my shifts. And then after my last shift, I would sleep for 3 hours. I would go work out, do this heavy workout with my personal trainer. Then I'd eat dinner, and then I'd go to a spin class, and then I'd go meet up with my friends, and I'd get drunk and maybe do Coke or Adderall and stay out until 3 in the morning. And I'm just like, what? How did I function like this? But I did that for years. For years, that's how I was. I would just get obliterated drunk. And that was the only time that I could really get out of my head. And so that was my way of self-medicating. It was my way of escaping those intrusive thoughts and the shameful thoughts and the way I was critical and just hard on myself. That was the only time that I could just truly take a break and silence those thoughts.
Did you find yourself that you were starting to get addicted to this lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically like I never drank or did drugs before work. I was very like disciplined and hardlined in that. That was an absolute no. But my days off, I mean, oh my God, if someone said brunch, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'd sleep for an hour. And then I would just drink for literally 14 hours. And just that was my norm. And it literally became my baseline where that was just like an expectation. Like, oh yeah, every day that I'm off, I'm just getting hammered all day. And it's really interesting because I don't think I would have stopped. I didn't really recognize that that wasn't a good thing. I mean, I knew on some levels it wasn't great, but I was crushing it at work. I was making a lot of money. I was in great shape. I was like, oh, look, like I'm on paper, I've got it all. But had it not been for the brain injury and the forced hard stop of that way of life, I don't know if I would have ever stopped. It would have taken something as intense and severe as a traumatic brain injury or something similar to get me to have stopped.
Wow. I'm glad you stopped.
Same. Thank you.
What you're doing now is really, you're priceless. You know,
I
I won't
appreciate that.
I won't quote Family Guy. Said that Lois was worthless, because he didn't understand the difference. I understand the difference. You may have felt worthless in the past, but you never have been.
And you're exactly right. I completely felt that way. And the person that I, portrayed on the outside to people was confident, successful, just doing great, like fun, just had a lot of great qualities. But on the inside, that wasn't me at all.
Yeah. And when you weren't drinking and on the drugs, you were at work and you were a workaholic, you were a perfectionist, you poured yourself into that. Was that another distraction?
Yeah, it was a trauma response completely. It was I had a lot of perfectionist, needing to overachieve, needing to be the best tendencies that all stemmed out of childhood because I learned at a very early age that you're not recognized, you don't have value unless you are the best at something, unless you are crushing it in some capacity. You have to be good and you have to be better than people for you to be successful. And I learned success was everything. And I truly just took that in. So to me, if I wasn't, excelling at work and excelling in the gym and excelling as a party girl, I guess, I don't know. I guess I was like, if I wasn't doing all those things, then I had no value and I wasn't bringing anything to the table. So I did anything and everything and went above and beyond in every way possible to do that. And it really was just a result of my trauma and feeling inadequate and feeling low self-worth and feeling ashamed of who I really was.
So, what helped you to be able to move on from all of this? What helped you to heal? What helped you to quit the drugs and alcohol? What helped you this much, other than the TBI, of course?
Well, the TBI was really the catalyst that brought me down the trauma healing rabbit hole. So I just really just was delving deep into as many therapeutic strategies as I could find. So I've done a lot of different things. I like to experiment and see what works best for me, which I think truly is what most of us should do, especially for healing from trauma. It's definitely not a one size fits all approach, but
Right.
I did somatic therapy. I did, neurofeedback, EMDR, craniosacral therapy, hypnotherapy, rapid resolution therapy, acupuncture, meditation, a lot of nervous system regulation. I mean, I really attacked this, and I don't mean attack in a bad way, but just I really hit this in so many different or from so many different perspectives because I knew that this was complex. I knew there was a lot, and I knew that this was going to be really hard. And so I found a lot of different strategies that worked at different points throughout my healing journey to help me get here. And I'm still in a place where I'm still doing, biodynamic craniosacral therapy. That's been really helpful for me. I still do acupuncture. I still see my therapist. I'm also learning about different approaches and I'm potentially going down the rabbit hole of ketamine therapy. I'm really just still really open to the fact that while, of course, I've grown and I've healed and I've recovered in so many different ways, you know, 35 years of my life have been really traumatic. It's not just you do this one thing or you do this for a year and you're good, like you're done healing. It's like this is a forever journey. This is my forever path. I'm going to always have to be, proactive in healing and supporting my mental health, supporting my physical health, and just really constantly doing whatever I can to best support myself. So that's really kind of the way that I'm looking at this from here on out.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about this book cover, because this book cover is so perfect.
Oh, thank you. It's so funny because I had this image and the book designer I was working with just wasn't getting it. And I just was so specific because I just wanted to really I wanted light colors to kind of break or pull away from the dark themes of the book because my book, I wanted it to be funny. I wanted it to be a lighter approach because so many trauma books, as you know, are so dark, so heavy, so medical,
It's a
so
trauma
intense.
dump.
Yes, truly. And
We
you
have
need to
enough
take
trauma.
breaks
We
from
don't
it.
need more.
Right. And that's exactly right. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, that is not my personality. That is not me. So I wanted this to be as light and as funny and as readable of a story as it can be. And to me, so that's why I brought the lighter colors in. But I loved the thought of just like a dropped ice cream cone because that's just that feeling of just uh, like not just not great, not a good day. You're feeling like, oh look, I got this ice cream cone. Life's great. Drop it, and you're just like, and now we're here. And that was that feeling that I really wanted to elicit to kind of show just kind of a little snippet maybe of just kind of what the character of my book was going to be like.
It really is perfect. It matches beautifully. I
Thank
have
you.
thoroughly enjoyed reading your book. There's been several times where it's been like, hey, Kyle, my husband's name is Kyle. Hey, Kyle, listen to this part and I'll read it a little bit. And he's like, oh, and he gets it. He gets it. It's hard for a lot of men to truly understand trauma healing from a woman's perspective because for one thing, we're all completely different anyway. Your healing is never going to look the same as mine, but my husband is definitely a man's man. He's a dude,
Yep.
but he gets it. I think anybody can really get a lot out of your book.
I so appreciate that because that was really what I wanted. I didn't want it just to be like, look, here's like, my trauma dump. Here's me just like, vomiting out all my information and my story. Like, here it is. Like, instead, I wanted it to be this really relatable, readable, and at times funny and comical story where, people can, get value from it but also enjoy it throughout the process instead of just being like, oh, I got to read this book because like I need to finish it. And like, I know it's going to be good for me, but I hate it. Like, that was the exact opposite. Yes, yes. Like the body keeps the score. That book is so valuable and just chock full of knowledge. But oh my God, I had to stop reading that book 12 times at least because it was just so like viscerally too much for me. And that's the case for a lot of trauma books. It's not just that one. It can be great and still provide you a lot of really important information, but be miserable. And like, who wants to read something that's miserable?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Man, and I love that you said that too, because I'm honestly, I have that book on my shelf right over there. Right over there. I have not gotten all the way through it yet.
Yeah.
I've had it
Yeah.
for years.
No, the majority of people that I talk to about that book haven't finished it.
Yeah.
I I did the audio version. I finished it, but I will say I fast forwarded some parts for sure. I did not listen to every single word in that book because I just couldn't.
Yeah. Well, there's some parts of it that aren't even going to necessarily be relevant, but the parts that are relevant are the parts that we need to reach out and look at and read and pay attention to.
Absolutely.
So I understand you have your book handy and you have a part of it that you would like to read for us.
Yes, I do. So this is actually a part that's super relevant to me right now because, once again, on my trauma healing journey and just my life journey, I have, excuse me, you think you overcome one challenge, overcome one hurdle, and you're going to find this like good spot for a while. But that's not usually the case, and my life has been really rocky lately. So I feel like this is something that can hopefully resonate with other people too, but this definitely resonates with me right now. Being on this healing journey is a lot like running. Well, running for people who aren't runners, myself included. You start feeling the pain early on, and you're like, forget this, I want to stop. But you hope if you go a little further, it won't suck as badly. As you're a little further into the run, you settle into the sweet spot of, okay, I think I can do this, and you hit that comfortable stride. Soon after, you're back to the, nope, I can't do this, this is hard, and you are hell bent on stopping. This is where a lot of us usually throw in the towel. So, what if you say, I just need to make it to that next stop sign? Then the next stop sign comes and you say, okay, legs, let's make it to the next stop sign. This is that really tough part where your body is saying, respectfully, fuck off and end this. But you know how good it will feel to hit that next stop sign. And maybe you keep playing this game until you make it to your original destination. Even if you don't make it that far, you can feel proud of pushing yourself further than you thought you could. And you know you're better for it in the end. That's the healing process in a nutshell. You have to constantly throw yourself over the next hurdle to what feels like the sweet spot, but it's not. You know something else challenging is about to jump right in front of your path. However, with time and practice, you get used to it. You find comfort in the discomfort. So instead of getting tripped up by the hurdles, you embrace the challenge, knowing how damn good it feels to get beyond it.
I love that. So people can
Thank you.
find your book on your website, laurarenner.me. That's LAURARENNER.me. And I will have all this in the show notes too. So people can click on that link. They can find your book. They can support you. They can learn more about your journey. Oh my gosh. What you do is just so cool. And I know I just met you, but I love you. I think you're just
Oh, thank you.
amazing.
Oh, thank you. You're the best. I so appreciate it. This has been such a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Absolutely. I've got one last question I always ask. It's my favorite question because the answer depends on how you're feeling today. What is one thing that you truly love about yourself that's not related to your physical appearance?
I love my resilience because even when I feel like I have been, backed into a corner and there's no way out and the panic sets in and the anxiety and just, the feeling like there's just no way I can get through this. I always do. I always find a way. And even when I feel like I'm at my weakest, I always am able to somehow find that strength to keep going.
If you've enjoyed tonight's episode, please make sure you check out the episode description. You'll find links there on how you can learn more about this guest, links to connect with them on social media, and how to support the podcast. Remember, I don't get paid to do this. My boss is a bit tight fisted, but I can say that. I work for myself.